You may have seen news videos on the Weather Channel where the newscasters and meteorologists are kind of blowing sideways and are out in the middle of a hurricane, and you're wondering, is it really that bad, or are they being overly dramatic? But then the next day, you might see aerial footage of the areas of destruction where some houses and buildings are actually blown off their foundation and others are still left standing. So, what is the difference? In most cases, it's the way they're constructed. See, we finally figured out technology after all these years of destruction that can actually help houses and buildings stay standing during the worst of winds and storms. Certainly, these new houses are better prepared for these storms. In our gospel today, Jesus has some advice for staying safe in our storms of life. Not necessarily bad weather, but for those storms that are serious nonetheless. Physical illness, emotional struggles, even spiritual struggles, things that can trip us up on our way to our ultimate home. What did he tell us that makes us more weatherproof? Listening to him when he tells us to do the will of his Father. If we don't, what will happen? He said, we'll be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rains fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was ruined. What he is telling us is to prepare, just like we're doing during Advent. We refocus our lives on Jesus, who also tells us that we don't know the time or the place, so better be prepared. Many of us have already suffered loss and illness in our families and our communities during this pandemic, all storms that could throw us off our path. The will of the Father, as Jesus mentions elsewhere, is for all of us to be with him for all eternity. So the best thing we can do during these storms is to keep our gaze on Jesus. When we're on a boat, we're trying to avoid seasickness, what do? We actually keep our gaze and stare at the horizon, so it keeps us from getting sick. The same thing for the storms of life, but we keep our gaze instead on him. There's no better place to do this than the Eucharist, meaning the Mass or Eucharistic adoration. There we can gaze on his beauty. The beauty that comes from humility, from courage, from strength, from infinite mercy, and unconditional love. If we keep our gaze on Jesus, we'll be better prepared to take on the storms of life, no matter how serious. Then we'll be like the wise man who builds his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, the wind blew and buffeted the house. But our life and our ultimate destination in heaven did not collapse. This is Deacon Germak from St. Paul's in North Canton. Have a great Advent. Blessings and peace.